Hey everybody, wanted to kind of go through or walk you through another one of our compound interest problems. As I was looking at some of our work from yesterday, the biggest thing I saw was inside of our parentheses, this interest rate over our n. That was the piece that we got kind of funky with. Again, the n is representing the number of times it's compounded each year. So that's going to be that number that I'm plugging in here and here. We did a pretty good job of plugging that value in up in our exponent, but down below in our parentheses, that's where I kind of got some issues there, okay? So I want to walk you through this again real quick, okay? First piece I want to do is go through and identify what we're given, so then I can kind of plug those things in as we go. So if I look through this, our A is going to be our total invested amount of money, so that's what our A is right here. That's kind of what it's going to equal. So this is kind of the question mark. This is what I'm solving for, okay? So that's the part that we're trying to figure out. The P here, our principal, is going to be my 750. So if you want to put like a P or something like that, or say that's my P there, I'm going to put 750 is my principal. That is what I'm starting with. That's the initial amount of money that I'm going to be investing here. Okay? Our R is our interest rate. Right now it is at 2.7%. Again, what we want to do is turn that percentage into a decimal. What I would do, and this is kind of how I would go through a problem, is off to the side here, I would already do that 2.7 over 100. So when I plug it in, I have my decimal of 0 or 0.027. Okay? This is what I would do prior to plugging it into my problem. Okay? That's the part where I had a couple people getting some issues here. I would do this 2.7 divided by 100 first before we plug that thing in. Okay? That's for my interest rate. T is my time. So right now I'm looking through here. All right, I got my interest rate. Here's my R. Interest rate, compounded quarterly, years. There's my years, so this is my time. So I know T here is 7. And then I've got, so T here is 7. My N, this is number of times compounded each year. Okay, so if it's annually, and that was one question I had from a couple of you, if it says this is just compounded annually is saying once each year. So you could say N equals 1 in that scenario, or you could plug it into kind of our old equation. I would personally just plug a 1 in there. That way you kind of are used to plugging a number in. You can kind of plug that number in. So if it's annually, you're just going to plug a 1 in. Okay? For this one, though, they say it's compounded quarterly. Okay? This is, again, in the last video I had, talked about the different words, what quarterly, semi-annually, monthly, what those numbers essentially meant. So if I'm doing it quarterly, that means I'm cutting the year into 4 pieces. So I'm each year I'm going to be checking that or compounding that interest 4 times. So quarterly means I'm going to be doing 4, so this is my N. So I'm going to replace my N with a 4 because quarterly means 4 times each year. Okay. So as I look through this problem, I've got each of my pieces that I figured out. Again, A is what I'm looking for, so that's why we have the question mark still there. So I can actually start plugging some things in. So I've got A equals P, which is 750, parentheses, 1 plus, again, that is part of our equation, that is there. And a couple people just put parentheses and just doing fraction work. Again, there's a 1 out front, so make sure you're putting that 1 there. Our interest rate as a decimal, this is the part that we had a lot of people missing. You were just plugging in 2.7 over 100 right in that spot. It is a little different when we have this n involved, okay? So I'd have to plug in that decimal version, 0.027. Again, you've got to do the 2.7 divided by 100 first. Then you plug the decimal in, over my compounded amount. So here my compounded amount N is quarterly, was our 4. Then I can do up top, we have our N, which we also know is 4, times our time, which was 7. Okay? So that would be my whole problem, my whole scenario kind of plugged into 1. All right? So when I go to plug this thing in my calculator, what I would go through, or what I would kind of do in my calculator, this is the written out how I'd plug it in. Parentheses 1 plus 0.027 divided by 4. And then I'd put the arrow key up, and then I'd do 4 times 7 with parentheses around. This is kind of like the calculator version here of what I would type in. Okay? That should be an arrow over here. So I got to grab my calculator, plug this thing in. We got to see what our value is going to be. So I would have 750 parentheses 1 plus the 0.027 divided by 4 raised to 4 times 7, and I get 905. So I get $905. Again, I get a decimal. This decimal is 0.455 something or other. Again, we're only rounding it to 2 decimal places because we're dealing with money. So this 5 here tells me to bump this 5 up to a 6. So my answer, again, we can check this, but my answer says, hey, at the end of the 7 years, when it's compounded quarterly at a 2.7%, the total amount of money that I'm going to need to pay back, or that they're going to give me, or that I have now, is $905.46. Okay. Again, you should be able to double check, does that make sense? Well, if I put in $750, I shouldn't get out less out of that amount, especially because they're saying it's kind of compounded. They're adding this thing on as we go. So if it's $750, it does make sense my number got bigger. 2.7 is not a huge amount, so it didn't get bigger by like a massive amount, okay? Again, hopefully this kind of helps you. If you've got any questions, continue to send them my way or Mr. Connor's way. But again, hopefully that kind of helps get you the idea of our compound interest, paying close attention to our end value in our parentheses here, okay? See you guys soon.